Hey guys, how you doing today? This is LJ and I'm here with Eric of Alegría Fresh Farms in Laguna Beach, and he's been kind enough to do an interview and show us around today, so let's check it out. So Eric, how are you today, man?
I'm feeling fantastic. How you doing?
I've never had it so good, dude, and I'm stoked to be here on your farm today. So tell me a little bit, what is Alegría Fresh?
Well, Alegria Fresh is kind of a crazy idea that started about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and it was all about pushing the limits of efficiencies. It's the West Coast's first hydroponic vertical farm. As you can see, we're surrounded by towers of lettuce and arugula and chard. You just name it, anything grows here. We're pushing the limits of efficiencies in many ways. We use 90% less water, 50% less fertilizer, about 70% less land, and 0 toxic pesticides. And we produce food that's about 7 times more nutrition rich than any other food you can buy at the market. And it's really not a fair fight, because the food you get in the supermarket is 4 to 5 days old, and that's really the inherent problem with the distribution system for big ag.
And tell me, why do you use this farming system?
Everything is grown hydroponically in coconut fiber, basically, which is soilless. We pioneered the concept of developing super high performance urban agriculture using a hydroponic drip system.
Okay, awesome. And tell me a little bit about how that works. I noticed that these vertical towers are set up, and basically, if I'm understanding correctly, the drip runs off through the first pot into the second, the corresponding pots all the way down.
Yeah, and that's really where the water efficiency comes in. It actually drips off the top tube there, and it drips it through a little micro emitter, and we set our timers just enough so that it drips into the bottom pot. Now, I've designed a little bit larger bottom pot. I use a 5-gallon bottom pot to grow all these big, beautiful kales and everything else, so I kind of get a free crop on the bottom.
Eric, in your mind, what are the problems with the current food distribution system?
Well, it's really the distance from where the food is grown to where it's actually consumed, and that is the biggest problem. It takes, on average, 4 to 5 days to get from fields, for example, in Fresno, Northern California, or even San Diego or Mexico, to supermarkets around here. And most lettuce, most greens, which are really fine leaves, are actually dead or half dead after 3 days. They lose 50% of their vitamin C. So the biggest problem is you're using oil, increasing your carbon footprint to transport vegetables over long distances, and by the time they get here, they're half as good as they should be.
As far as the nutritional value and what you're uptaking. And then furthermore, I understand that cooking it removes even more of the vitamin potential out of the...
Well, yeah, that's a whole other subject, but yeah, you can overcook raw vegetables. And when you get into nutrition, consuming raw vegetables as close to the time of harvest is critical. Our lettuce, for example, is on average 7 to 10 times more potent, which is nutrient rich, than any lettuce you can get in town, because it's not really a fair fight. There's 4 to 5 days old, and I'm picking mine at the last second. And
the flavors too. Can
you
tell me? I was blown away by some of the flavors that you had in this garden. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and that's really where it all, where I say the rubber hits the road, so to speak. If you taste these vegetables, you're convinced. I can talk all day, tell you how, what's in it biochemically, etc., and it won't make any difference until all of a sudden you taste them. And if you think you know what cilantro toast tastes like, come in here and taste it. If you think arugula is powerful, taste our arugula. When a plant is absorbing really well and it's very, very fresh and it's got a lot of nutrients in it, it's very pungent. And so that's what I'm trying to teach people, is how to select vegetables based on how powerful they taste. And so we have kind of the demonstration farm here on what stuff's supposed to taste like.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, the difference. I mean, when you're used to store-bought lettuce like I am, and then you step into some of this stuff, the flavors can almost be overwhelming, It's like you don't even want to add dressing to a salad because there's so many big flavors present. You just don't need it, and that's never been my experience in the past till I met you. So I think this is totally incredible, and everybody should check it out. Now,
I have a little story to tell you real quick, because
please do.
It really lends credence to what you said. One of the things I'm really interested in is reconnecting youth and people to their food supply. Back in the 40s and 50s, half of Americans basically grew their own food because they had to. And so that was a very healthy food supply. Most Americans were eating locally grown food. But in the last 60, 70 years, we've gotten completely away from that. And you start seeing things like kids getting diabetes and early onset of diabetes, and they're all suffering from obesity at 16, 17 years old. And some of the early onset diabetes is happening as early as 13 years old.
Jeez.
It's insane. It's all diet. So my overriding goal here was to teach people how to grow their own food in very fresh, high performance fashion, very resource efficient, and have parents be able to reconnect their kids, not to their iPhone, but to the food, the salad that they might eat. My brother's kids actually came in here and they swear they don't eat salad. And after a half an hour, I watched them walking around. I think there must be like a grazing gene or something, because they started picking lettuce out of here, and all of a sudden, Uncle Eric, what's this? What else can I eat? This tastes really good. And when that happened, the lights went on.
Yeah.
So we've actually started teaching classes with mothers, daughters, mothers, and sons. It's very female, kind of a nurturing energy here.
Yeah.
And they're very interested in what their kids eat. So that is really what is one of my big focuses now, on how do we introduce our kids to this.
You had also mentioned that you were highly interested in doing it in urban atmospheres, because that's where the greatest need of the fresh food is, and it seems to be where it's most efficient. And that was a concept on this farm. Can you elaborate a little bit on that for us?
Yeah, it's pretty well known that in big ag you have to have 1,000 acres to produce enough food to make it profitable. And I was always, you know, if you're going to try to make try to influence a paradigm shift in the way we view our food and the way we grow our food, you have to come up with a profitable, or what I call a sustainable business model. And so what I decided to do was to see if I could build a 1,200-foot enclosure and put enough plants in there and develop enough revenue centers, such as a produce route. I mean, we deliver about 50 bouquets of lettuce a week now to very upscale and affluent clients in Laguna Beach. It's picked at 3:30 and put on their doorstep at 4:30.
Incredible.
And we're using that to actually, these people have no time, they're busier than heck, they're all out making money, and the last thing they want to do is grow their own food, but they do understand what nutritious food's about. So by us delivering a bouquet like that directly to them, they can taste the difference. So that's one model. The other model is actually building other farms. I mean, you can see that big ag usually takes 1,000 acres to make it profitable. We're actually in about 1,200 square feet here, and normally, if you look at traditional urban agriculture, that would feed one person. We're actually able to feed 50 out of this space.
Wow.
And there's a whole bunch of factors that lend to that, because of how fast the food grows, and basically it's because of the vertical production, I'm actually growing 6 to 7 times the food just by every layer of pot I go up. So if I've got 8 pots, I'm growing 8 times. That's my starting point. If the food grows 2.5 times faster,
that's another big
there's
big factor.
There's a big factor, and my yields are going way up.
Yeah,
And
because of hydroponic delivery.
Right, and if I'm growing, you know, roughly 10 times more, then you can see that in a very small space, you can produce a heck of a lot more food for a lot of people. So I would love to see, you know, one of these farms every 3 miles or every 2 miles.
I'd love to see them in dense places like Chicago, where, I mean, there's a lot of poor people that kind of, it seems like, I walked into a supermarket recently in San Bernardino, which is a little less affluent than Laguna Beach, if you will, and I noticed that there was just an overwhelming amount of soda displays and sugary cereals, and I mean, way off over yonder was some fruit and vegetables, but it seems like they were advertising almost these horrible foods directly to these people, and I'd just love to see this type of thing in Chicago and Detroit, where people could really get turned on to healthy foods and whatnot.
You've just hit on a really important subject, and I don't think it's the big chains that are trying to stay out of marginalized areas. There's a lot of incentives. You know, our federal government is starting to provide tremendous incentives to put more fresh food into these marginalized, what Michelle Obama refers to as food deserts. Places you're talking about, San Bernardino, Rancho Cucamonga, Ontario, and the city of San Bernardino are 3 declared food deserts. We have Santa Ana, which is 10 minutes away from here, and these are very large, you know, urban areas full of very affluent people, but also a very big marginalized population that don't have access to this fresh food. So yes, this is a solution. I mean, you could actually put 1,000 square foot farms in parking lots. I don't need soil, I don't need ground. I mean, I grow up, I can actually, you know, put these towers right on top of asphalt and be just as happy. In fact,
Yeah.
the heat coming off the asphalt will even
Help
benefit
your
the
root
ground.
system,
Exactly.
yeah. It's going.
Yeah, so it does lend itself really, really well in the urban environment. And once again, you know, I don't think it'll replace traditional agriculture because you can't grow everything in here. You're not going to grow a citrus tree in a pot.
Yeah.
But when it comes to high power nutrition, these greens, you know, these powerful greens like these green and red romaines and all these herbs that we're growing, which I call medicinal herbs. I mean, we basically are creating a fantastic green pharmacy, and that's pharmacy with an F-A-R-M-A-C-Y.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And if you understand, you know, food and how it works, you can't get cancer eating in a place like this. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. For the guy that wants to grow some of his own vegetables in his backyard or whatever, what would be your advice for him?
Well, first come and see the farm. You kind of have to see it and taste it to believe it. And then secondly, decide how much you want to grow. And then we'll help them design the ultimate garden.
Awesome.
We're teaching people how to take their raised bed garden, for example, and use organic soil on the bottom and put these towers in over the top. Grow all your root crops in your organic base, such as your carrots and your beets and anything else that you want, your onions, potatoes, and then put towers in and grow 10 times more food in the existing garden that you've got. Grow all your lettuces above it.
Absolutely.
And then you can even automatic water it. You can do it on a, leave for a week if you wanted to, and as long as the electricity doesn't go down. And if you're really worried about that, put it on
solar panel. Yeah.
We solar powered this entire farm, so everything on this 1,200 square foot, 6,000 plants growing here is all solar powered by one panel and one battery.
Eric, would you mind giving us a tour of the garden?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Come on, let's go. Thank you. This is the new polypropylene potting system that we're recommending. It is a fully recyclable polypropylene pot. It comes in 3 colors. It makes beautiful architectural style pots. Here we have ornamental kale and green romaine, and you can see how prolific it is. The pots actually stack and they drip off the bottom through many different ports. They work fantastic. They transfer water easily through the coconut fiber down to the bottom pots. This can be used for a home garden, put on a deck or a patio or a balcony. It can be put anywhere. This is not actually pounded into the ground, so you can decorate your house with these beautiful edible gardens.